Formerly a food media personality in Toronto, Theresa gave it all up for more independence, joy, peace, and sustainability in Stratford, Ontario. Now she actually does what she used to mostly just write or talk about, grow her own food, create meals and memories for guests at Rosehurst Stratford. Her busy bed and breakfast, which started at number 81 on TripAdvisor, is already up to number 13, and she insists the secret ingredient is love. Welcome to the show, Theresa.
Thank you so much.
I'm so excited to have you here because I feel like a lot of women get to midlife or a certain point of their career and they decide they want to just change it all.
Yep.
So let's talk about that. What was sort of the driving decision for this big change in your life?
Yeah, our daughter went off to university. We decided to separate, and I thought, you know what? Like, I was in media, which is, of course, not earning the way we once did, not being paid for writing, so I thought, I'm going to go back into the workforce. That's what I'm going to do. So I called my friend, who I had known for decades, who's a headhunter, and we went over my resume, we went over my skills, and he said, yeah, here's your problem. You need, your $100,000 a year job, or your $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 a year job, and you're 50, and a 25-year-old can do what you do for $25,000. So it was a real eye-opener that I took that 20 years out of the corporate workforce to, build my own career, create my own life. I was self-employed. I loved it. I loved raising my daughter, but it was an eye-opener that I actually wasn't going to have the financial independence that I wanted if I just went back into the workforce, doing, like, going in-house and doing communications or whatever it was. Like, there were a lot of people who could do what I do, even though, I had this broadcast skill that is, hard. Like, it's hard. It's a skill. Not everybody can do it. So that for me kind of went, all right, sit down. What are your skills? What do you bring with you? And where can you apply them for yourself? And then I went, yeah, also don't forget to layer in the joy and the love and the, how to calm down and be your best self. So, and where do you want to live for the rest of your life? Like, where did I want to retire? It wasn't Toronto. I wouldn't have been able to afford it.
Right. So I think, so there's two things there that you think women should do then. The first part is that sort of real hard assessment of financial stability and sustainability. And then also a really hard look at your skill set.
Yeah. Yeah. It's humbling. Let's not say humiliating. It's humbling to kind of go, what am I qualified to do now? It can be really hard. 20 years out of the traditional workforce is a big chunk of time. And the workforce did not stop for you. So all of the things that you've been teaching yourself to do may or may not be appropriate. So yeah, for sure. And then how do you want to live the back half of your life? Right? Like, what does it look like? And I think a lot of us have these stars in our eyes about, well, I'll buy my little, whatever, lavender shop or bed and breakfast, but is that going to sustain you financially is a harder snapshot.
So let's talk about that because, bed and breakfasts are often sort of held up as this goal, this later in life thing that people want to do. But I imagine there's got to be a lot of hard work behind that.
Oh man, there's a lot of hard work. The first year, so Rosehurst has 4 bedrooms. Which is a lot. Like, 4 bedrooms is actually a lot. So what you need to do, I did study hotel management. So I sat down and went, okay, what's the average rate? What can I charge? What's it at now? What can I get it to? What's the percentage? So, those hard numbers. And then I also knew that I had Mr. Fix-It skills. So, there's certain things that I could do. I could tile the backsplash. I could, switch a plug. These are things that I can and like to do. They're not things that you would have pictured me doing when I was on Food Network, right? It's like, okay, what can I do? Because for the first year, I did it all myself. So I was making breakfast for 8 people every single day from March, probably more like April, by the end of April in full. to October, when I would literally drop by 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So I'm growing all the food. I'm making breakfast for 8 every single day. And then I'm turning over the rooms. So I'm doing all the laundry. Like it's like having a family of 8, like all the time. And I added the extra layer of growing the food because that gave me some peace and some, quiet. And I like getting my hands dirty. One doesn't have to do that, but it is being on all the time.
Right.
On either physically in that you're hostess with the mostest all the time. And that comes fairly naturally to me. But I'll tell you, by October, it's like, it is a fake smile.
Yeah, you're probably digging pretty deep by then.
And I had to learn how to take care of myself. So my first step was, I need to find someone to help me clean, because I don't love the cleaning. I'm pretty particular about how it ends up. So I needed that person. And these are all business decisions with the skills that we have. And of course now I'm looking at an empty bed and breakfast perhaps until next spring.
Right.
No revenue. What does that look like? So I had to put on my business hat. The lovely part about running a bed and breakfast is absolutely true. Financially, it's smart because I live in my investment. So for me, that's, only kind of half the year I share my home, and I have a private space with a kitchen for myself and a jacuzzi tub like that, because your body hurts. Like, it's physical labor. So what does that look like? And yeah, you're hostess with the mostest. I'm a morning person, so that's good because I can chit chat and, before
Perfect for a bed and breakfast.
Totally. If you're not a morning person, don't do it, because you've got to be up first and, cheerful before anybody comes down for their coffee. So after we get all that out of the way, that yes, it's a lot of work. It truly is a lot of joy. I have met the most incredible, Order of Canada winning physics prof, Scientific American writing people every day. Like, I call it people Yahtzee. Every day I get up and I just kind of go, what do we got now? What are we going to talk about? We could talk about the play, but if it's going to be meaningful, we extend beyond that. So I love that. Similar to hosting, a TV show or a radio show, or I love being able to pull out those bits and pieces for people and create that memory. That part is so cool.
Right.
And with this pandemic now, I've had guests like, my first, like, I'm about 50% booked for this year. And that means I have 50% of the money in my bank account to carry me through until I deliver the service. Like, that had to get me through the winter. So when this happened, the financial fear is, oh my God, everyone is entitled to their money back.
Right.
Like, that, not like, some of it's gone because I needed to keep the heat on over the winter and do the renos and buy the new sheets and do all those things over the winter. And the rest of it will wipe me out. Like, I can't make it to next spring. What does that look like? And I'll tell you, I've had guests call and say, no, just keep it. Keep the money, keep the deposit. If we come this year, we'll use it. If we come next year, we'll use it. Just keep the cash. So, that hasn't been everyone yet because we haven't killed the whole season. But these beautiful people that have spent their last 3 years of vacation with me have just, given me this gift of faith, of trust that I will be here for them and I will make that happen for them again next year. That is the most beautiful honor.
That's incredible. I love that.
Yeah.
So you say that when you make a switch like this, be where you want to land.
Yeah, it's really cool. I think you have to forecast. And sometimes when you're in midlife, you don't know really what you want your life to be. So, a lot of that journaling and all that hokey stuff to figure out, where you want to be. I knew I didn't want to retire in Toronto. I knew I wanted to be in a smaller community. And I just started scouting. Where would that be? I mean, great. It would be cool if it was in, Paris, but not likely. So what kind of life did I want to create? And then give yourself 10 years to create that community. I've made young friends who will do my grocery shopping for me when I'm in my 80s because they're in their 30s and I'm helping them breastfeed. Like, I'm investing in the human community here. You can't just show up and start to sort of take, from, and find a doctor and take from the community. You kind of have to be here and invest in it and build, because it's the people that make the back half of
And
your
that's
life.
really just wise advice, no matter where you are. It's to invest in the community you're in.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny because, even showing up at town council, like when I was living in Toronto, I didn't think I was a drop in the bucket. Like, what is my voice? Who cares what I have to say about whether or not my tax is raised or any of those issues? And now I actually go to town council and I sit in and I've met the mayor and I've shaken his hand and if I placed a call, he would answer me.
Right.
So, that's an investment in how I want to retire. How am I contributing? What are my thoughts to shape? And in a small community, it was easier to do that, to shape, I want a food bank that feeds our community. Right. So how do I shape that? How can I invest before I start needing to take it out?
Okay. Thank you so much, Theresa. This is great. And so if people want to find you and they want to book with you for next year, or hopefully, fingers crossed, this year, where do they go?
The Facebook page is Rosehurst Stratford, and you can find me on Twitter at Theresa Albert, and that's Theresa with an H.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much, Theresa.
Thank you, Candace.